Welcome to the Soulcery Podcast, your sacred space to delve into spiritual tools, topics, and practices that will illuminate your path of soul remembering and healing. I'm your host, Lígia Costa, a soul guide, alchemist, soul writing coach, and the creator of the Trust Pathway. I'm deeply grateful to have you here with me. Together, we will embark on a profound exploration of self-discovery and healing, unlocking the secrets that lie within. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Soulcery Podcast. I'm your host, Lígia Costa, here to delve into the depths of the spiritual journey and guide you through the path of self-healing. Today I'm going to answer a question that I am asked a lot of times, and that is how to know if it is the voice of the ego or the voice of our intuition that is talking to us. And there is this myth that you can only listen to these two voices, either your inner voice, which is your inner compass, your intuition, or your ego, which is basically your mind. But the truth is that your ego is made of many voices. It isn't just your mind. It is all the voices that your mind retained as memories because you were told so many times the same thing and you believed it. So, including in this variety of voices, we have the voice of our parents or the voice of the people who raised you. You have the voice of your siblings. You have the voice of your extended family, the voice of your teacher, the voice of a co-worker or a boss, the voice of a religious leader, of friends, of acquaintances, the voice of your partner, and the list goes on, it never ends. And that is because your ego serves as a receiver of all these voices that you grew up hearing, that made you process and decipher your own experiences in the world, and that created fear in you, and the fear that is not safe. The fear that is not safe to trust those voices, or to trust yourself because those voices are telling you something different than what you initially felt about you, right? So your ego is simply the part of you that sees fear instead of love in the response to anything that is difficult, that is challenging, that is hurtful. It just makes this assumption that everything is scary and everything is dangerous. And so when we talk about ego and we have this awareness that the ego is just an echo of all these voices that we grew up hearing and that is causing us not to feel safe and to feel fear, it's natural to believe that ego is bad, that it's our enemy, that it's something to avoid. But the truth is, our fear is just trying to be our friend. It's just trying to protect us from pain, from being hurt, from being disappointed, from being rejected. And it just wants us to make it, just wants us to survive by reminding us of all the reasons that we might not survive or how dumb we might look like if we fail. So not only is the ego giving us this fear that is not safe, it also gives us the fear of failure. But deep down, it's just to protect us. And that's why ego exaggerates everything, so that we then believe that we are in danger. And that's why it's so important when we talk about the ego to understand the meaning of fear and why they are related. So basically, the negative ego began talking to you for the first time, you felt fear or you felt hate. And because fear is the natural human response to the belief that love is not present and that you're not safe, the ego always takes you back to that fear every time something triggers you. Because your mind quickly creates this belief that you are on your own, that you are alone, that you are outcasted, that you are separate from others and also separate from the divine. So when you believe that you are on your own and that you are alone and that you are vulnerable, that you're not safe, anything that happens, then you will perceive it as threatening your survival. And so it becomes an ultimate menace to be feared and to be hated, which in other words means that your ego is trying to remind you about what you lack in you and is required to fight, to win, to overcome the threat. So the ego doesn't remind you of your strengths or of your skills. It just reminds you of the lack of strengths and the lack of skills that you need in order to fight back, in order to overcome the threat. But don't get me wrong, fear can be very healthy, the fear that, keeps you alert, the fear that makes you cautious or mindful, the fear that makes you reflect, the fear that makes you ponder before you take action. That is healthy fear. Fear only becomes dangerous when it's debilitating, when it stops you from moving forward or carry on daily tasks and chores. And also when fear is fooled by hate. Unfortunately, the more airtime you give to the voice of the unhealthy, feared ego, which includes all of these many voices that we talked earlier, that just reminds you of your shadows rather than your light, the more difficult it is to challenge your thoughts, to challenge your limiting beliefs that are basically separating you from your soul. And you might find that when you are working on healing these negative thoughts and these negative patterns of behavior, your ego will fight you. It's not going to surrender very easily. But the more you work on changing your beliefs and healing your heart, bringing love into your life rather than being consumed by hate, not only the louder your ego will talk, but also the better chances you have to heal it. Because the reason why the ego speaks louder and louder every time you're trying to bring love into your heart and change those beliefs is because it doesn't want you to heal. It's our responsibility to heal ourselves. Because if we give in to fear and we give in to the voice of the ego, we will not get there because the ego doesn't want us to heal. And that's the reason why so many people fail to do the shadow work. Because as soon as you start healing the first layers and the ego comes strong than ever, it gets hard and people just give up. They succumb to the part of themselves that is afraid to heal because it feels so comfortable to be in the crisis and to be in fear. And also because part of them believes that not worthy of being healed. But the truth is, you can change the negative ego into a positive one. And that is by doing spiritual grounded work. When you work on committing to your soul and to healing the parts of you that need love. But for that, you must be prepared for the idea that an aspect of you that you always knew and that you always believed yourself to be must die. You must be willing to do the necessary inner healing and trust. That is very important. Trust yourself enough to believe that you will survive the death of this aspect of yourself that you need to let go. And only when you do that, only when you lean into trust, you'll be able to hear the voice of your inner knowing, of your inner guidance, of love, the voice of your intuition that speaks in whispers. And that's why you need to lower and manage or even dissolve the voice of the ego. So then you are able to hear your inner voice much clearer. Otherwise you can't hear it, because the voice of our soul speaks in whispers. If the ego is being too loud, we can't hear it. So to answer the question of today's episode, how does the inner voice sound like? So I know if it's the inner voice I'm talking to or the ego. The answer is very, very simple. And you had it all along. Your inner voice sounds like love. It comes from your heart, not from your mind. And it's a voice that is certain, that is confident. You don't feel doubt or fear whatsoever when you're hearing the inner voice. And it is not judgmental. It's so kind. It brings that sense of inner knowing. You just know. Even though you don't know how things will unfold or how things will look like, you just know deep down that you are safe and you trust. You don't worry or you doubt or chase or question things. You just trust. But the thing is, when you go through a situation or an invitation from the universe and you have to make a decision or to make a choice, your inner voice not only speaks in whispers, it is the first hunch that you feel. It's just like that. If you don't hear it straight away, whatever voices you'll hear next will be your ego. And that's why you start thinking about the pros and the cons and doubting yourself, doubting if you have what it takes, thinking, I'll think about this later, or I have to ask so-and-so for their opinion. That you'll know it's your ego. Your intuition, the voice of your intuition will come straight away in a split of a second. It is the first thing that you hear or that you see in your third eye or that you know within you, because it is simply self-trust expressed through and for you. So that is the best advice I can give you when you don't know if you're hearing your inner voice, your intuition, or your ego. As soon as an invitation presents itself, as soon as a question is made, as soon as an opportunity presents itself and you have to make a decision, you have to look for the first hunch, for the first image, for the first knowing, the first feeling, the first gut feeling. Because that will come from a place of love, of trust, of safety, of possibility. After that, it's just the ego talking. And that is why it's so important to learn and to master self-trust. And listening to the voice within is soul work. Trusting yourself, trusting your intuition is soul work. So when you commit to doing soul work, you are nurturing your inner voice and you are listening to your higher calling. You are dedicating yourself to being open to becoming inwardly rather than outwardly focused. Because you know all the answers come from within you and not externally to you. And I believe that it is our life's mission to do this soul work, to become still in order to hear that wise inner voice within that knows more than any senses can ever reveal. So in order to nurture that inner voice, try your best to make space for stillness, to make space for being. And this can look like practicing meditation, prayer, and journaling, or as I like to call it, soul writing. Because in order to make space to hear to your intuition, to your inner voice, you must go within. You can't get the answers from outside of you. You need to go within and plant the seeds of trust. You need to consciously grow the belief and the knowing that you are safe no matter what happens. Even when you don't know how things will pan out, or you don't know how things will look in the future, you just know that you are safe and that every step you're taking now in the present moment is going to lead you to your best outcome. Because, having this kind of self-trust is understanding that your soul already knows. Your soul already knows that you are always safe and that survival is not your issue to be worried about, to fear about, or to waste your life about. Your survival is in the hand of the universe, or God, Source, the Creator, whatever name you feel it resonates more with you. It's the Creator's issue, it's not your issue to worry about. You just need to trust that you are safe and trust the guidance of your inner voice, the whispers of your soul, and do the soul work that is necessary to be able to hear that inner voice, those whispers. That's what you need to worry about. That's the thing that you have to nurture, is create space to go within and trust that the guidance you are getting when you do go within and you're hearing the whispers of your soul, it's the guidance that you need and that you don't need to worry about anything else. Before I love you and leave you, I will pull a card from my Trust Journaling deck. And the card that I pulled is from the Soul Suite. And the Soul Inquiry is, what would happen if I decided to love and embrace all of me? What would happen if I decided to love and embrace all of me? And the affirmation is, I am a beacon of love and light. And I love that this card came out, special because it's from the Soul Suite and we'll be talking about soul whispers and the voice of our soul. And I think it's a beautiful and very powerful soul inquiry to journal about, because we have been talking about the inner voice being the voice of love. So if you decided to love and embrace all of you and embracing that love within you, what do you think would happen? And it's a good way also to practice listening to your inner voice. Whatever comes first to you, just write it down. Don't overthink it. Don't go back to check your grammar, your vocabulary, anything. Just write it down. The soul inquiry, read it, and the first thing that comes to you, either by inner knowing, by an image, by something that you hear, just write it down. And that is the guidance from your soul. And if you'd like to go deeper on self-trust, I am just launching my new course, Unshakable Self-Worth. And many people don't relate self-worth as soul work. But self-worth is basically knowing our sense of self, knowing who we are at a soul level, because when we know ourselves at a soul level, we know that we are deserving of everything, that we are safe, that we are loved, that we are one with the Creator. And so we are worthy of being loved, of being safe, of being taken care of succeeding, of having good health. And many people who struggle to trust themselves and do the soul work and then listen to the inner voice is because they have this very rooted belief that they are not worthy of being healed and they are not worthy of this ability to hear their intuition, because they believe it's something separate from them, that only those that are healed or too gifted are able to hear the intuition. But everyone can do it, everyone has it, but it's just blocked. Those that will struggle to hear the inner voice, it's just because it's blocked by fear. And fear is the number one reason why we struggle with self-worth. So if you're curious about this course, I made it super accessible in terms of price, because I believe that sharing our wisdom and sharing our medicine in a way that everyone can benefit will benefit the collective. So if we all heal, we are healing the collective. I will leave the link in the show notes so you can have a look. And I would love to have you on board in this course, and that I could guide you to healing yourself and therefore open yourself to the possibilities that await you when you hear your soul's whispers. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope it was helpful, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you for listening to the Soulcery Podcast and for holding space for this conversation. It is truly magical to be able to walk with you on this journey of soul healing and inner transformation. If you resonated with this episode and found it valuable, I would be grateful if you could leave a review on iTunes. Your feedback helps me reach more souls searching for guidance and healing. For more guidance and soul wisdom to support soul awakening women through the journey of alchemy, please visit my website www.ligiacosta.co.uk. Love and healing to all. See you on the next one.